Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Nedarim, pages 68 through 74. 68, Samachet. Shama Ba'ala, her husband heard her make a neder, v'heferla, and he annulled the vow. V'lohispik av lishmoat shemet, but the father did not yet have time to annul the vow before he died. Ein abal yochol hafer, the husband cannot complete the nullification of the vow, shnabal mefer lebeshutfus, because the husband can only annul a vow of his na'ara wife in conjunction with her father, and he's not around anymore, so it's a lost cause. 69, Samachtet. Shama aviha, the father heard, v'heferla, and he annulled the vow. V'lohispik abal lishmo ad shemet, but the husband didn't have an opportunity to hear and nullify before he died. The husband the father can then go ahead and nullify the vow again on behalf of the deceased husband. So both halves of the nullification process are done by the one living remainder of this duo, namely the father. Amar Rabbi Natan, Beit Shammai. That's the view of Beit Shammai. However, Beit Hillel says in Yochel Hafer, the father does not have the ability to nullify in that instance. Ayin 70. Meita'av, if the father dies, Lonitrokna reshut labal. Authority for nullification does not simply transfer over to the husband. However, when the husband dies, authority for nullification of vow does transfer over to the father. In this respect, the authority, the power of the father is greater than that of the husband. However, b'davar acher, in another matter, in a different matter, the authority of the husband is greater than that of the father. Shabal mefer bebeger, because the husband can nullify vows even when she's a bogeret, even she's over the age of 12 and a half. Whereas a father loses all ability to nullify vows once the girl has passed the stage of na'arut and gone to bagrut to 12 and a half, she's totally out of his control. Ayin Aleph, 71. Nadra v'hi arusa. She made vows when she was betrothed. V'nizgasha, but then she was divorced. Bo bayom, on that very day. Afilu lameya, even to 100 different marriages of betrothal, divorce all in one day. Avio bala achon mafir nedareha. Who can annul the vows that were made? Her father and the final husband, the last husband still standing that day. Zehaklal, this is the general rule. Any woman who has not yet gone out to her own domain, sha'achat for even 1 hour, then her father and her most recent husband, the current husband, are the ones who have the authority to annul the vows. Ein bet. Derech Tamid Chachamim. It is the way of the scholarly elite, of the sages. Before his daughter goes out of his control, Omerla, he should say to the daughter, any vows which you might have made while still in my home, behold, they are hereby nullified. So the Gemara wonders, what's the legitimacy of that? V'ha lo shama, he didn't hear them. He's just in the abstract. Whatever you might have said doesn't count. But the rule is you have to hear the neder and then nullify it. And he didn't hear them. So l'chi shama hu demefer. Well, this is just a preemptive strike, but he's going to have to nullify the specific vow when he hears about it. Well, if that's the case, im ki lo shama lama leila meimar. If he's going to ultimately have to nullify it again when he hears about it, what was the purpose achieved by this initial statement of whatever you might have said doesn't count? The answer is, it's a strategy for fathers to find out what their daughters might have said. Because by going through the charade of saying whatever you might have said is nullified, this is a tactic in eliciting information which was a secret until now. So hopefully the father will then find out about this or that particular neder and then be able to nullify that particular neder when he hears about it. Ein Gimel. Ein mashkin shtei sotot ka'achat. It is forbidden for a man to give the drink to 2 sota wives at the same time. Meaning if we're talking about a man who was polygamous, who had multiple wives, and he gave warning to both of them regarding suspected adultery, and they're both eligible potentially to drink the sota waters in the temple, he can only bring one at a time. He cannot bring 2 simultaneously. Why? Because each one is going to be influenced by the other. In other words, the refusal to confess by wife A, and rather to insist upon the drink, will lead wife B to similarly refuse to confess and insist upon the drink. But we would actually prefer if they didn't drink, if they really were guilty, and just say the truth. But the inability or the unwillingness to be seen as weak in the presence of the other wife will cause both parties to go the distance in terms of the trial by ordeal of the test of the waters and not admit what we would really prefer that they admit. Ayin Daled, 74. Shomeret Yavam, a woman who was awaiting levirate marriage. So her husband died, and she didn't have any, and the husband didn't have any children, and the husband had a brother. There was a brother-in-law or multiple brothers-in-law. So now this widow is tied in a zika bond to her brother-in-law, brothers-in-law, awaiting levirate marriage, yibum, or possibly chalitza with the shoe ceremony. But she's waiting for something. Well, whether she's tied in this pseudo-matrimony to one brother or even to two or more brothers, Rabbi Eliezer Omer Yafer. Rabbi Eliezer says the brothers-in-law, have the ability to nullify this woman's vows. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Le'achad V'lo L'shnayim. Rabbi Yeshua says no. If there's one brother-in-law, then it's a solidified relationship between him and her, even though they haven't had marriage yet. So he could nullify her vows. However, if there's more than one brother-in-law, so it's not clear who's going to do the yibum of the chalitza, then you can't say that this or that person is going to be able to nullify. Nobody can nullify. Only when there's only one brother-in-law is it possible. Rabbi Akiva Omer lo le'echad v'lo l'shnayim. Whereas Rabbi Akiva says, no. It doesn't matter whether there's one brother-in-law or multiple brothers-in-law. They cannot nullify her vows because nullification of vow is only the prerogative of an actual husband. And these men are not her husband. They simply have a halachic bond to her, which could lead eventually to matrimony if yibum is done. But in the here and now, it hasn't been done. So therefore, no nullification of her vows. Everyone have a great week.